U.S. Major General blows whistle on what they really found on Mars. Alexander Light, humans are free. Again, a lot of these things sound like tall tales, but I'm putting them out there for us to know of anyway. Quote, the time to pull the curtain back on this subject is long overdue. We have statements from the most credible sources, those in a position to know, about a fascinating phenomenon, the nature of which is yet to be determined, end quote. The statement above comes from John Podesta. You can find the source in this quote from Podesta on UFO. Chief of Staff for Bill Clinton, Counselor for Barack Obama. It's a powerful statement because it's true, and we now have witness testimony for hundreds upon hundreds of high-ranking, very credible people from within political and government, military, and intelligence agencies saying that the UFO, an extraterrestrial phenomenon, is indeed real and deserves very serious attention. And to use some of the statements from these credible people, there's a link here below you can click on. We also have official declassified documentation to back up these statements, and again another link here. And if you put two and two together, it's clear that, quote, there is abundant evidence that we're being contacted, that civilizations have been contacting us for a very long time. Dr. Brian O'Leary said this, former NASA astronaut and Princeton physics professor. But it's not just the UFO extraterrestrial phenomenon that seems to be gaining more transparency. Strange things have been observed in space. Perhaps this is why the Russian government recently called for an international investigation regarding the missing film footage of the U.S. moon landings, or why the U.S. defense physicist and deputy manager of the Clementine mission to the moon recently blew the whistle on what's really happening up there. Major General Albert Stubblebine can be added to the long list, although he did not participate in the citizens' hearing on UFO disclosure, where a number of military, political, academic, and government personnel testified to several former congressional members. His credentials speak for themselves. General Stubblebine is a retired United States Major General. He was also the commanding general of the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, INSCOM, and one of America's most distinguished soldiers, and chief of U.S. Army Intelligence with 16,000 soldiers under his command. He was a major proponent of psychic warfare and a key player in the Stargate project, which was a remote viewing program. Remote viewing can be defined in multiple ways. It's the ability of individuals to describe a remote geographic location up to several 100,000 kilometers away, sometimes even more, from their physical location. The results of this project were declassified and published in the peer-reviewed Journal of Scientific Exploration. In this program, individuals successfully described physical objects that were nowhere near the physical location. And these programs were the inspiration behind the movie Men Who Stare at Goats. Well, if you look at the video before this one, it talks a little bit about remote viewing, and some people saw in the 1970s saw that the U.S. Capitol was under 100 feet of water, whereas others said no, it was fine, there was no water, etc. So take your pick. One said, a remote viewer said, yeah, the U.S. Capitol was under 100 feet of water, and the other said no, it wasn't. So who do you believe then? Anyway, going back to this article, here's what General Stubblebine had to say about Mars, perhaps thanks to some intel from remote viewing program. Quote, there are structures on the surface of Mars. I will tell you for the record that there are structures underneath the surface of Mars that cannot be seen by the Voyager cameras that went by in 1976. I'll also tell you that there are machines on the surface of Mars, and there are machines under the surface of Mars, under the surface, that you can look at, you can find out in detail, you can see what they are, where they are, who they are, and a lot of detail about them. End quote. This is by Dolan, Richard, UFOs and National Security State, by New York, Richard Dolan Press. Now, I'll let you think about that for a moment. Is it really that far-fetched? With all of the recent UFO extraterrestrial phenomena disclosure happening within the past few years, is it really hard to fathom the existence of structures, bases, etc. on the moon and on Mars? This is by Arju Walia Collective Evolution, and it's here by Alexander Light on Humans Are Free. Okay, well, it could be ours. They could be ours. And what H.P. Hall, Manly Hall, talked about is that these Atlanteans and pre-flood civilizations had very advanced technology, and a lot of these entities, these people, these humanoids or humans, our ancestors, whatever you want to call them, did escape from the flood, before the flood and after the flood, and establish similar cities and pyramids and set up their technologies in other areas of the world. And they were even the beginning, the first deities of ancient Egypt, one of them being Thoth, the Atlantean. And it could be that their remnants are still around and they're making themselves visible, and we call them ETs and UFOs, whereas they were probably here before us. This is according to Manly P. Hall. And even to Thoth. Even Thoth explained that they're still around. And, okay, you tell me what you think. I have no idea. But when I was about 12 years old, I will never forget that. We saw a UFO above an electrical tower at the end of our cul-de-sac neighborhood. It was above a tower at the beginning of a forest at the end of our neighborhood. Not making any noise, just standing on top of it, hovering on top of it, no noise whatsoever. And we kept on going around the cul-de-sac with our bicycles for like half an hour, and it was there. And we said, well, it was low enough for us to see what it was. It was not evening, I would say, before sunset. And it was white. It was a disc, like an inflated disc, and no noise whatsoever, just sitting above it. And when we asked each other what it was, and we figured by process of elimination that it could only have been a UFO, it was not a balloon, it was not an airplane, it was not a helicopter, it was not a hot air balloon, and we just hightailed it out of there. But I will never forget that. And it was at a time when a lot of UFO encounters and sites were being reported around Canada, Montreal. This was in Montreal specifically. So tell me what you think they may be. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.